Alrighty, I'm Dr. Jonathan Chung. I'm a chiropractor and performance coach who works in esports, and we're going to talk about your first workout program as a gamer. Alrighty, we'll talk over the explanation and rationale between all of my decisions. We'll go over the different exercises I recommend, and then we'll put it all into an example program for you. Now, the explanation part is important because there are so many different influencers and so many sources of information out in the world right now, and making sure you understand why I'm making these decisions will make your life a lot easier. What are we building here? The whole idea is you want to have a solid foundation for beginners to start. If you want to do powerlifting, if you want to do bodybuilding, if you want to go into CrossFit eventually, if you want to be a marathoner, all of this stuff is possible if we start here. And we're focusing on really big bang for your buck things and stuff that makes working out a little bit easier because you just have to do less things. The key thing to note is this is really a 6 month to a year kind of training program. After that, you will likely have to change to something else to make sure you're still getting the gains that you want. Further definitions is just like when I started, we're beginners. Less than 12 months, consistent, proper training. The consistency and proper training part is really important here. If you haven't been on a good program where you're progressively overloading, you're sticking with the same exercises but making sure you're lifting more weight, more reps or something, and also being consistent, then you're still technically a beginner. Once you've done that for 1 to 4 years, then you're in the consistent or intermediate section. And then once you've stacked 4 years of that, then you're advanced. The other thing to note is when you go through all this, a lot of the time I'm going to talk about what's called a hard set. And we denote a hard set by at least 2 reps in reserve. What this means is how much effort are you putting into the exercise? How close to failure are you? 2 reps in reserves means if you theoretically could do 10 reps of an exercise, say it's 10 bicep curls, 10 is your absolute max, you're shaking, you're dying, getting the weight up, that is 10. And then if we go down to 8, that's 2 reps in reserve. Okay. I see some people filtering in. That's awesome. I did start, so if anybody has any questions or wants me to go back, please let me know. Okay, we'll keep going, but if anybody wants me to back up, give me a second. Okay. All right. Now, moving on, we're going to talk about steps and reps here. There's a lot of research on this, which is really interesting. In the beginner section, if you do just 1 to 5 sets per muscle per week, that's enough to cause growth, which is great. And if you choose things like compound exercises, which are more complicated, like a bench press or a squat, then you can do 2 to 3 sets per exercise. And if you choose something that's more isolated, which is like a bicep curl or a tricep extension, then you can do 1 or 2 sets per exercise. And you can still get the job done well. Intermediate, you have to up that to 4 to 8. And then if you want to go even beyond that, and if you're in the advanced category, in that 4 year ish of your training, then we have to probably go up to 12 to 20 reps, 12 to 20 sets per muscle per week. Now, the good thing to note here is that we count sets based not on the exercise. So say you do a set of bench press, that's not just 1 set as per the last slide, but we actually count which muscles are involved in the movement. For example, like the bench press, if you do 1 set of bench press, that counts as 1 set for chest, 1 set for front delts, and 1 set for triceps, which is awesome because that means you wind up doing less than you think you do. Because if you do that we'll go back here. If you do that 1 to 5 sets per muscle per week, that actually means that if you do push-ups and you do pike push-ups, then that counts as multiple muscles for both. And if you do those 2 things, you actually cover quite a bit, and you actually don't have to do as much when you're working out, which is great. Now, continuing on in this vein, when you are thinking about how do I maximize my workouts, usually we want about 6 to 8 of those hard sets at 2 RIR per muscle per workout session. We're not quite there with the amount of programming I've done, but it's still more than enough because doing anything is better than nothing. This is maximizing how much muscle growth you're doing, which means if you're trying to be really, really serious or you're trying to be really, really efficient, this is how much we're aiming for. But you don't need to do that. When you look at more complex muscles like the back or the chest or the legs, you want to do a few different exercises per muscle because it's so complex and you want to try to hit everything. Whereas if you're doing calves, for example, it's really, really simple and you only really need to do one exercise because it just does one motion versus the chest might do a whole bunch of different motions, and same with the shoulders and the back. I did choose exercises to give us a ton of bang for our buck here. And if anybody, let's see, there you go. And this makes it a lot easier because you can do, just like we were seeing before, less exercise and still get a lot of really good benefits. This also means that if you do one workout per week with just 2 or 3 hard sets per exercise, then you're actually doing more than enough to cause positive changes. Obviously, if you do 2 to 3, that means you get faster results, but it also means you might be more sore, and so we have to balance those two things. Okay, I somehow still haven't talked about reps, so let's do that now. There's a lot of thinking on what makes sense for reps. I'll skip over to a slide above where we just were, and usually people will consider low reps to be 3 to 5, moderate is 5 to 15, and high is 15 plus. A mix is good for advanced lifters, but in the beginning, I like to keep it really simple and keep it to 6 to 15. And the reason for that is that you can build muscle in almost any rep range. They did a study on people who did 5 reps in a set and some people who did 50 reps in a set, and everybody actually built muscle. The things to note, though, are the heavier you go, which means you'll likely do less reps, is the higher the chance of injury. Because you're just taking your amount of headroom, your amount of capacity that you're trying to play with is just so much smaller that there is a higher risk of injury there. You do have to be more careful, which is why, especially for a beginner, I really don't want you to be doing max outs, 1 rep maxes as much as you can. It's just asking for trouble. Whereas if you go the complete opposite direction and focus on doing really high reps, the limiting factor becomes less about the muscle and more about the cardio to actually do something that many times, which means if our goal is to build a good base, have good strength, and try to build some muscle, then it's not really the best idea. The 6 to 15 range I just talked about, it lets you challenge yourself while still being more safe, and then you pair that with the 2 reps and reserves that I talked about to find what weight you might choose. Does that make sense, everybody? Any questions there? Okay, we'll keep going. Now, what we also want to note is in between sets, we generally want to choose about 30 to 60 seconds. Most people will max out at about 5 minutes to fully recuperate, but that's usually only for a really intense powerlifting style workout where you're doing low reps, super high weight, and you're trying to lift as much as possible. If you're not doing that, then 5 minutes is really unnecessary, and I typically recommend 30 to 60 seconds. Okay, we saw this already. I'm also doing some curls. Some people tend to ask me about how to lift for strength versus bodybuilding. The simplest way for me to describe it is to get better at lifting heavy stuff, you have to lift heavy stuff. But the cool thing is that as long as you're lifting 80% of your 1 rep max, which is the absolute most you can actually lift at once for 1 rep, and you're doing that for 4 hard sets per lift per week, you can still build strength. Which means you don't have to do a lot to actually get stronger, and especially when you're in the beginning, doing something that's just what I'm talking about will be enough to build strength. This is more for if you're more of an advanced lifter. Okay. People like to ask if body weights or weights matter too, and it really doesn't. As long as you have enough resistance, which is what I'm talking about, the 2 reps in reserve, then you'll still respond and get stronger and get bigger. If you don't, then you won't. The thing to note is that body weight tends to be really, really hard if you're bigger. So for a guy like me, I struggle with body weight. I can do it. I can do at least 5 pull-ups, guys. So I'm pretty good. But it is really, really hard to scale when you're trying to go between the different progressions on body weight. For example, if you start off with a push-up, you can start with a wall push-up. Oops, sorry, not the mic there. And then you can go down to, say, a counter level push-up, and you can go down to something like a couch push-up, and then a floor push-up. But then to progress beyond that, it's hard. Double and passing on to the next. Oh, Mark's saying that he can do 50 to 70 push-ups and not 1 pull-up. That's very impressive in a way that I did not expect, Mark. Tell me what's the struggle with the pull-ups? Tell me. I'll keep talking, but that's a very large discrepancy. Oh, Clem has a question on deloads. Deloads are important because they're part of the recovery process. If you're early on in your weight loss, or not weight loss, sorry, but your fitness journey, then you can get away with it. But once you start hitting your plateaus, then making sure you have deloads means that your body can recover and then push harder again. I usually recommend every 4 to 6 weeks you do a deload. And it doesn't mean that you have to stop lifting, but it just means that you might do 50%, I'd say, is the minimum for me for a deload. Cut the waist by 50%, either with how many reps you're doing or how much weight you're doing, just to allow your body to recuperate. Especially if you're lifting heavy a lot and you're pushing quite hard, your body needs time to just recover and build up those neurotransmitters and just let your muscles grow. Yeah, it's progression. Stuck on negatives and lat pull downs. Okay, how many negatives can you do, Mark? And can you give me an idea of your lat pull down strength versus your weight, just so I can get an idea of what the sticking point is. All right. I also do want to touch on warm-ups. The key thing with the warm-up is you really just want to raise your core body temperature. You don't need to do anything specific unless you're doing something that's sport related. For example, if you're a pitcher, you should warm up by doing some pitching specific drills. If you're a tennis player, you should do some tennis specific drills. But if we're going to the gym, then we don't need to be that crazy. And basically, all you want to do is the thing that you want to do at a lower intensity. For example, walk for 5 minutes, then do a set of counter push-ups before your working sets of floor push-ups. Right. Any other questions before I get into some of the recommendations for exercises? Keeping an eye on the chat here. Mark's typing, so I'll let him keep typing. We'll keep going. I broke things up into different planes because if we can hit these general planes, then it means that we're hitting most muscles. And that means vertical push, vertical pull, horizontal push, horizontal pull, and then just imagine this is my leg, lower body push and lower body pull. If you can do all of those things, plus a bit of abs, then you're covering pretty much every muscle in your body, and you're making sure that you have a nice, balanced physique as you go through all this. With vertical push, I can't talk today, guys, I'm sorry. Vertical push, I also broke it down, just like with all the other sections, into stuff that you can do with no equipment, some equipment, and then a full gym. I did also generally make it a little bit more difficult the closer you get to the full gym side, because as with most people, you tend to get more serious the more you go to the gym. Here, we'll start with pike push-ups, and then the some equipment will be dumbbells, and you're just pushing straight overhead. And a full gym would be with the same thing, but with a barbell, which is a little bit more challenging because you don't have the range of motion that you normally have with a dumbbell. Okay, Mark has some stuff here. He's 210, 145 max lat pull downs, 5x5. That's quite impressive, actually. And negatives 3 times until failure. Okay, I think you have a decent amount of strength here, Mark. I I think what would probably help you is some banded pull-ups. And the reason why is because your strength is decent. Your eccentrics are not bad, being able to do three. I know everybody hates those. I know. I do too. But it's important to make sure that we're still trying to build the motor pattern that you want for these. And honestly, if you're telling me you hate them, then unfortunately, this is one of those places where you can't always go around. You have to go through to get to what you want. I've never heard of Australian pull ups. Flash, what are those like? Oh, a decline pull up. Okay, so almost like an inverted row. I see. Yeah, that's possible too. Basically, the whole idea is that we want to regress it enough until you can do the full motion because you're strong and can do a lot of the other alternatives. But I do think, especially if you're trying to build up to a pull up, doing that exact motion but slightly easier is one of the best ways to progress. Let's see. Londi has a question. Ah, okay. This is a dude. You're right up my alley, actually. Uh, Diable, you're asking for if there's any specific advice for someone who's dealt with a big injury or surgery and are limited in what they can do at the gym. Very good question. I'd also sorry, Mark. I don't know who Hampton is, but if you do, then awesome. I'm not sure, but if you can point out who Hampton is, that would be helpful. I will go back to Londi here. This is a tough one because it's really specific to what kind of injury you have. If, for example, you broke your arm, I would still want someone to still do as much as they can as long as it doesn't affect the arm, which means, okay, maybe you can't do a full squat, but we still want to do lower body, doing something like a pendulum where you load yourself, you don't have to hold the handles is a great idea, or leg extension, leg curls. Generally, I want to keep people as active as possible, even if they do have an injury, which means how can we work around it? How can we still work whatever is available without pissing off the thing that doesn't want to get pissed off? Well, do you see you have some more details there? Yes, Hampton. Hampton's great. I like Hampton a lot. He's very good. I think of him as his name is Hybrid Calisthenics, I think. But yes, that's I didn't realize he had a full name. But yes, I like his stuff a lot. He's a smart guy. Okay, Londi says he broke his left arm and had a long metal plate plus 14 screws. Ah, really nice ears. Okay, some interesting stuff here, Londi. There's I'm gonna get to the fun stuff and then we'll talk about the less fun stuff. The really cool thing is that I've seen a lot of research around if you do training on the opposite hand, there is carryover to the other side, which means I actually would really encourage you to keep up any kind of training that you would normally do, but make it unilateral. That means, okay, if you're doing chest press or bench press or doing as much as you can for the upper body with just the right side and not touching the left side, which means that it can still heal. It depends on how recent this injury was. If it was yesterday, you probably shouldn't even be in the gym yet. You still need to recover from the surgery. But as soon as you're clear to actually start exercising again, not with the left arm, but with everything else, then I would encourage you to do as much as you can with the right hand and just with your entire body in general, because it'll also help things heal faster on the left side. Okay. Just to give you all an example, this is what the vertical push looks like. You're basically kind of doing a downward dog, but then pushing with your hands to try to get the shoulders and the chest involved. Okay. I'm keeping an eye on the chat, Londi, but I'm also trying to progress things as well, so don't think I'm ignoring you or anything. For vertical pull, which is the next category, we're looking at sliding for pull downs, which I know make no sense, but I'll show you what those look like in a second. We'll also do pull-ups and another alternative, like we've been talking about, is doing assisted pull-ups or a lat pull-down machine. I think if you want to progress to the pull-ups, then doing assisted pull-ups make it a lot easier because you can slowly back off on how much weight you're doing and you can see the progress there. Okay, Londi said it was not yesterday, but about a year ago. It's still healing, lots of pain, and just really tough to do something like bench press. Yes, yes. Okay, bench anything more than 120 pounds, so they'll feel like his left arm is going to fall off. Okay, that is a very interesting situation. Has your surgeon cleared you to use a left arm for working out, or is there any worries there? The sliding floor pull downs look kind of ridiculous. I know, like, it looks like something else, but essentially what you're doing is using a towel or something on your knees so you can slide, and then using your hands to pull yourselves up. So if you can imagine, I'm trying to do that lat pull down movement, but on the floor and using my body as a resistance. So you're actually lying down, face down for this, and then pulling yourself along the floor. It looks a little ridiculous, but you need minimal equipment, which is great. Okay. For horizontal push, the classic push-up. Once you have some equipment, doing a dumbbell chest press, or if you decide to go down the calisthenics route, using some parallettes for dips are great. If you do have access to it, I do highly recommend doing an incline push, either with a bench press or an incline chest press machine, because it hits your upper pecs as much better than a regular push-up does, but it also does that while still hitting the middle pec just as well. It just means you get more bang for your buck for your exercises. This is everybody's seen what a push-up looks like. This is decent form actually. His fingers could be gripping the floor a little bit more, but he's got it for about 45 degrees, leaning with his chest. He could also not be pushing his head forward as much, but it's not bad. Okay, Londi has a follow-up here. He's been totally cleared for everything, which is great, but I was told there's really no telling how much of his strength it will turn. It's a unique situation because after his initial care, he went through, it was done improperly, which makes the injury worse, which sucks. So it's not even a standard arm break. It was made worse because of the treatment. And he's in about 4 months of physical therapy, but not been in for quite some time now. Okay. All right, Lonnie, this is an interesting one. I think we need to recalibrate a little bit. And what I mean by that is you are comparing yourself to where you used to be, and you want to get there as soon as possible, which is understandable. However, the problem is you're likely pushing yourself too hard too fast, and it means that your left arm can't keep up. And what I would recommend instead is to do more unilateral work. That's the first thing. And try to match reps, but with different weights. For example, if you're doing a chest press and you want to do 10 reps total, maybe you have to do 30 pounds on the left side, but then you can do 50 or 60 on the right. And it would allow you to still feel strong with the right side, but it would let the left side catch up. And that's the whole point of this, is to allow your left side to catch up. I also think that usually this far after, there is some sensitivity going on, which means you do have to deal with some discomfort, even for something that we would think is okay, which is frustrating, but it's part of the process. And simply doing what you're doing, which is working out and still being active, is really, really great. This is a very good question, Londi. Do you think you should take it really easy, and just avoid what you're doing? Sorry, not doing, but avoid the bench and deadlift entirely. I always like to recommend people to do what they can. And what you can do is obviously very specific. But if you can bench for 120 pounds, and yes, it feels like your arm is going to fall, but you can still do it, I think that regressing back to even just the bar would likely be very possible, but it would hurt pride. I know it would hurt my pride. I think taking the time to kind of start from zero and still doing what you can is important, because we want to get you back to the gym. We want you to still be able to lift, and making sure that you do that by doing the lift is important. Unless there's something going on where you can't physically do it, where it's just no, it's impossible for me to, or even get into that position. That's different. We have to work on that first. But I like to get people doing what they want to do as soon as we can. For horizontal pull, there's a couple things here. One is the towel isometric using your feet. Basically, put your feet up, wrap the towel around it, and then pull. Please be careful. Don't let it slide off and hit your face, or you fall backwards or something. Don't be dumb. But that's probably the minimal equipment way. Some equipment will be an inverted row. I've had people do this on the edge of tables or with a couple chairs, and you hold up like this and you pull back. I can't do that because I'm too big, but I use parallettes, but that's possible. And then when you're at a full gym, a seated or chest supported row is great, or pendlay rows if you want to go down that way. That's basically just a barbell row, but you reset the weight in between so you don't have to put as much pressure on your low back. Okay. Londy's saying, yes, he's a big guy, 6 foot, 260. Yes. I hear you, mate. That's really hard when part of your identity is in that strength aspect, and feeling like you can't do as much as you normally can really sucks. The 120 pounds is rough when you're 260 and 6 foot. Of course, I'm happy to help. I do think you need to recalibrate, start back farther than you think you should, and then build back up. And you'll see the progress. And like the Flash says, working out will also help with bone density, which is great. But I do think doing what you can is the name of the game here, and going more slowly than you think. I generally recommend people to make a 10 to 15% jump if you're going to from week to week. And especially if you're dealing with like the kind of injury you have, taking time between those jumps is going to help you a lot. Yes, that's a good point, Flash. There's a difference between being sore and being hurt. That's why I also like to talk about the 2 IRR thing, which is okay, we push ourselves, so it's a challenge, but we're not killing ourselves. Because the closer you go to failure, the scarier, uh, the higher chance of injury. And once you are confident and advanced, then you can totally do that. But if you're not there yet, then you gotta take some time. This is the craziest, one of the craziest images I found on the internet. But this is a great example of the towel row. It's one of the most German looking men I've ever seen with the Adidas and everything. And I love German people, but it just looks very German to me. This is a good one. This is a great example, and he's being very efficient. Cool. Lower push. We want to look at things like squats, lunges, split squats. Those are all great ways to really hit the lower body without any equipment. But if you do have some equipment, doing goblet squats, dumbbell lunges, split squats are great. For Casey, the line between being sore and being hurt, yes, gets really blurry. Same for me, brother. And then when you're in a full gym, barbell squats are actually quite like pendulum squats. One thing we haven't talked about a ton yet is range of motion, but the more range of motion you get, it means that you also do a stretch basically, and then you don't have to stretch later, which is great. And then you also put the muscle under more tension, which means that you tend to get more growth. Okay. Londi was saying, I think what scares him in the gym in terms of the left arm specifically, how do I understand which is typical pain versus genuinely concerning because of the nature of the left arm? Okay. This is a good one. There's a few things. Generally, what I tell people is more than 4 out of 10 on a pain scale, which is 0 being nothing, 10 being the worst thing you've ever felt. Whether it's sharp, and that means you can kind of imagine if someone's pushing you like this or pushing you like this. Does it feel like someone's sticking you with a dagger? That's usually bad. And then also, if it feels just more uncomfortable than you would expect. But in your case, you kind of have to overwrite that last one by pushing through it a little bit because we know that it's been going on for so long, and it likely means that it's probably mostly healed. And when I say probably, I mean there was some crazy stuff happening. I don't know for sure, but if it's been a year out, most things that would be MSK related, bones, ligaments, tendons, should be on the way to healing and should be able to take some love. And what I also think would help you is How do I describe this in the best way? Uh, I think I hate to say it, but part of it is you have to spend some time with it yourself because it's it's kind of like when you first learn how to work out and you realize what DOMS is like, or how close to failure it feels like, and you again have to recalibrate. Okay, what feels okay? And I think the long term answer to this, Londi, is you have to do some experimentation yourself and figure out. Okay, this was too much. I felt way too sore afterwards. It felt weird. Didn't like it. That's your new. Okay, that was an 8 or 9 as opposed to the 5 or 6 I thought it was, and spending time thinking about how much effort you're putting in and how much you're getting out of it in terms of discomfort or pain or tightness is really really helpful for you because it's hard for me to say definitively this is it. You got to put some time in, but I'm glad that the 4 out of 10 helps because generally for me 4 out of 10 is okay. Cool. For this is actually a great example of someone doing a squat. He's rounding a little bit at the bottom, but he has good depth. Then you'd probably get rid of that rounding if you put heels under here, so he wouldn't have to compensate here. Not a bad squat at all. Cool. And oh, Ryan Sykes Sensei's here. He's one of the goats. So my high school coaches were basically hurting me. Great. They just called me a panty and told me to get out on my shield like a man. Wow, your coaches were terrible. That's not good. They they were just mean, dude. And the problem is that if you push someone that hard, there's some merit to doing that. But if you do that all the time, then you just burn people out, and they don't want to actually work out or do anything, which sucks. Because working out's fun. Pushing yourself is fun, but pushing yourself like that much is not reasonable. It's too much, dude. Okay. Oh, yep. He goes for the diamond gym. Yep, yep. He's on the what is it? Speed run, bronze to ascendant. Oh no. Okay. Lower pull basically means we're looking at of the hamstrings and the posterior part of your lower body. We can do that with hip hinges, single legged Romanian deadlifts, which basically looks like when you see a golfer pick something up and he goes on one leg and bends over. That's what we're looking at here. If you want to something a bit more isolated, we can do a towel slide hamstring curl. Basically, what that looks like is you put a towel underneath your heels and then you slide your feet out while you're on your back and then slide them towards you. They're very difficult. I hate them, but they do work. You can also do some dumbbell deadlifts once you have those. Do a single leg variation as well. And if you have a friend to hold down your ankles, you can do Nordic curls. Those are brutal though. Do not recommend them if you're just starting. And then once you have access to a full gym, assisted Nordics are great. Hamstring curls are great. Deadlifts are also great. Uh, Ryan was born in the darkness. Oh boy. This is a nice example of a deadlift. He is extending a little bit too much at the top here. He's trying to lock out his hips, but it's a bit too much in my opinion because it can sometimes if you have a back that kind of hurts, it's a bit much. And then this is what it should look like. Generally, you want to keep your back more straight. Some people, it is totally fine to have some bending in your low back. I've seen a lot of really, really great deadlifters do that. That's totally fine. But this is the movement we're thinking about where you're just basically keeping your knees straight, relatively straight, and you push your butt back. Cool. Uh, yes, Casey's saying that trap belt deadlifts are great for your old man low back. That is very true. They're great. They it's a slightly different motor pattern, but they work really, really well still. Okay. Everybody always likes to talk about abs. You can't spot reduce, as everybody knows by now. But if you do build up your abs, then you can have bigger muscles. And even if you have the same amount of fat, if you have more muscle, it'll show less because the muscle's there to take up the space. I like lying leg raises, planks, crunches if you're doing something with no equipment. If you have some equipment, then doing a reverse crunch with a couch. And if you're at the gym, doing dragon flags on a bench or cable crunches are great. This is a nice example of a leg lift here. She's got her back flat. She's supporting her lower back a little bit. It just also gives her some more support on the ground, and she's trying to get her legs up to 90 and then controlling it on the way back down. Okay. Yes, for flash. Yes, you can have your upper back bent as well. Exactly. Yes. The bigger thing is trying to keep the position consistent. You're exactly right. Okay. Now, if you put all this together into one program, this is what it looks like. The order does matter here. I do think that is important because if you do, say, squats, then some sort of hip hinge or deadlift, right back to back, it can be really, really uncomfortable because you're just so tired and you're hitting the same body part multiple times right after each other. Not great. I also recommend doing this all at once, which means you do the pike push-ups, you do your 2 or 3 sets in a row, then you move on to squats, then you move on to sliding floor pull downs, then you move on to hip hinges, and so on and so forth. I don't really recommend doing 1 set of pike push-ups, then 1 set of squats, then 1 set of sliding floor pull downs. The reason why is you need repetition to get better. And one of those things that can help you get better sooner is by doing the same thing temporally close together, which is a fancy way for saying do the same thing over and over again. Which means if you do the pike push-ups and then you do the squats, you have 6 or 7 more exercises before you get back to doing it again. And having that repetition be right after each other means you can get more exposure to the movement pattern and get better more quickly. I do think once you start to care about doing things more efficiently, then you can start doing things called supersets, which might be the pike push-ups. You do that as a set, and then you go right into the squats without resting, and then you rest and you for 30 to 60 seconds, the same as you would normally, but now you're saving that rest time by doing those 2 exercises back to back, and then you move on to the next 2 and then the next 2. That you can do with this setup as well. All you would change is suddenly, okay, I do this and this, so I do pike push-ups and squats, then I rest, then I do another set, and then after you've done that set, then you do sliding floor pull downs and hip hinges, rest, and then repeat. That's more important once you're more advanced, but this way means you can get the most gains as quickly as possible. Okay. Other thing to note is, as you can see, everything is in the 6 to 15 range. Nice and simple. And the only thing that's different is the planks because it's timed versus reps. Anybody have any questions on this one? I think we have a lot more advanced lifters, so if you have more specific questions around stuff that's more challenging, then please let me know, because otherwise that's your full program, guys. I can make this. I'll make this available to all the Neuroptima guys. So if you want to make any other screenshots or anything, then you'll have all of them. But this is the Q&A time. Oh, the goal of the example program, it's really just beginner bodybuilding / powerlifting. A lot of these movement patterns transfer really, really well to anything that you want to do powerlifting or bodybuilding wise. And it's meant to just get someone moving, hit all the muscles that you might want to, and just provide a good foundation. I can go back to the beginning. Okay, we're going to close your eyes. The whole goal here is just to have a good base. It should allow you to transition to almost anything you want afterwards. But I do recommend only doing this kind of training for about 6 months to a year. After that point, you'll kind of figure out what you like, and then you can make things more specific. Ryan, work out for you, make you buffer. I wish I could. I do like working out. It'd be fun to work out together, actually. I would like to do that the next time we're in the same place. Oh, you're good, Londi. It's all right. I think that was also on me. I should have been better about announcing to everybody that we were going live. That's on me. Okay, Ryan's question: how can you do less and look buff like you? The short answer is steroids. The second short answer is genetics. And then the third answer is you can actually make things more efficient. And the way you do that is by going closer to failure. There's actually a lot of interest right now, obviously, in the research, trying to do less but still getting the same results. And what we're finding is You can do less with supersets, which means you take less rest in between, but you pair two things that don't fatigue each other. So it's usually an upper and a lower. And then you take your sets closer to failure, and you can actually still get away by doing just, if you're working out 3 or 4 times a week, then you can get away with just doing 2 sets as opposed to 3 sets of your working sets. Yes, Mark, people have called me Dr. Chungus before. I actually was thinking about making that my uh, screen name or gamer tag, but I thought it was a bit too, bit too, how should we put it? Bit too unprofessional. Flash is also a good point. Nutrition is huge. Casey, you can talk about that. If I do cardio on non-lift days, how would I space those away from this? Okay, this is a very good question. I think if you're doing cardio on non-lift days, it tends to be okay unless you're really going for long runs or doing sprint work. Because the idea here is that you're stressing your cardio more than you are your leg muscles. And I actually find that some people who do a big leg workout but then still do cardio the day after, it's actually kind of almost nice because it flushes things out. Granted, the research on active recovery says that it's not really a thing, but anecdotally, people seem to like it, so I don't have a problem with it. The other thing is, for example, in the NBA, they'll do a big game, right? They'll play their game, and then they'll actually lift right afterwards because what they've realized is that you're going to be tired regardless, and it's actually better to prioritize recovery by loading up all your load into one day and then letting someone just have a day off afterwards than to spread it out. What that means for you is that if you were really worried about leg overlap, then you could even do cardio on the days when you're working out, as long as it isn't maybe just a leg day, because doing leg day plus cardio would be pretty brutal. Ryan talked about the clavicular special. Mark is crying. Yes, me too. Nutrition's hard. Real question: what is more important, strength or cardio? From Ryan. This is a good question. It depends on what your goal is. If you want to be better at running, then cardio is obviously more important. If your goal is to actually be stronger, then it's obviously strength. If your goal is to look good, I would say that strength is more important because the whole point of cardio is people will think that, oh, if I want to lose weight, I should do more cardio, but you can't outrun your fork. And Casey can talk about that. And Flash has a great question there, which is what is your goals? Quality of life and mental regulation, not to get fat. Okay. And then Flash is saying probably cardio, better for endurance and resting heart rate. I could argue both ways actually here, Flash. I think the more strength you have, the it can also really increase your quality of life because then you can think about it as, okay, if I have to lift something, it takes 100% of my effort, but now I get stronger, and now that same thing is now 80% of my effort. Life is now easier and nicer because now I can do that thing with less of my capacity. The second part to that is uh, males tend to lose muscle mass drastically, and it's kind of scary, drastically after 40, which means that all the muscle you build up until that point is essential. And after 40, it's kind of just, it just happens, but the more you have means that the more you have to lose. And I also think that the more muscle you have, it's more metabolically expensive, which means that you can then eat more. So that's also why I think you kind of need both, Ryan, honestly. And you are not ugly, please. I think Casey doing a body comp series will be really interesting. And Flash, thank you for being an open-minded person. I think both are important. I think for Ryan, when we're talking about quality of life and mental regulation, I think cardio tends to be nicer for the mental regulation part because I get out of my head and I'm just kind of moving. Uh, Anything else? Any other questions? Otherwise, we can just I'll go back to the final slide here, which has the example, just in case anybody wants to steal it. Please do. I have seen Ryan has been posting a lot on Instagram lately about his fitness journey, and you're doing good work, dude. You really are. You should be proud. I think the biggest thing would be just making sure you're taking yourself close to failure and you're challenging yourself. As long as you do that, then you'll see the differences. As long as you're also eating well and everything else. Uh, Casey saw Huberman recommend we do the Athlean X neck protocol for those that pass through. Okay, on posture concerns, we're going to test gaming a lot. Thoughts on targeted network. This is an interesting one. I think neck work does have its place. Do I think it's more important for someone like an F1 racer who's dealing with insane amount of G forces and you actually have to isometrically flex against it. For someone like a gamer or a desk worker, I think it can be helpful, but I think what's more beneficial is just making sure that their ergonomics are set up properly and that they also just move enough regularly. What this means is uh, just getting up more. If your neck hurts during the day, move around more. And it also doesn't take into account the stress part of the equation and the mental part. And what they're finding is that certain postures can actually trigger more pain. And if you, especially if you associate pain with that posture, which means just another reason to change your posture more often so that you don't associate pain with a certain posture, even if it might not normally otherwise. For Ryan, he cries the whole time. You say that's secret. Good to know. Good to know. And then Londi, is there a place we can reach out with questions and stuff after this? Yes. Okay. You definitely can. You're always welcome to DM me on Discord. That's totally fine. I also know that the Neuroptima guys are working on some stuff behind the scenes to make this make more sense. But we can basically there's some stuff in the works, Londi. But in the meantime, feel free to DM me, man. I'm always happy to help. Uh, Now, okay, now that I'm rereading Ryan's question about the posture concerns, if you do want to change your posture, then there are things you can do there. For example, just making all these muscles in the back of your neck stronger so you can hold your head up more naturally and with less effort. That's something that I do think is reasonable. But if you're doing it from a pain standpoint, I think there's other ways that you can do besides just targeted network. Okay. Flash is a question. Find someone to work out with. Yes, that makes a huge difference. Help you keep each other accountable and you can cry together. Very true. Very true. I also think that once you set yourself a goal, especially one that's objective, for example, I want to bench 315 pounds by the end of the year, then once you see yourself making progress towards the goal, then things get really, really addictive. Just like a game, right? If you're trying to be platinum, diamond, whatever, when you can see yourself make progress with that every time, it's really, really fun. Casey's shouting me out and being a nice guy. I appreciate you, Casey. He's also the goat. If you ever need help with any dietetics work, Casey's really good. Uh, I have helped Casey out with some of his old man issues uh, because he's been busy and has two children and life is hard. Okay, mark in case you're typing. We can wait for that. Yes, this can happen, Mark, where you can go really well and then you get sick and then the momentum's gone. I Yep, I get that. I hit 285 on bench press and I was really happy and then I got food poisoning that weekend. and and it was rough. I did recently hit 275 for 3 and I almost hit 285 for 2 and I just missed it. So I'm still getting stronger, but it's definitely slows things down. The key thing to remember is it's a marathon, not a sprint. I Building up muscle and changing your body comp takes time. Even just to change your muscle and to grow some, it takes 4 to 6 weeks. It takes a long time. And I'd say that for most people to say changes, it's consistent work over probably 2 or 3 months before you start to really see a difference. Okay. Casey is popping off to go for another meeting. Thank you to Dr. Chungus. That's funny. I might have to start going with Dr. Chungus. I've also had people call me Big Chungus before. That was quite funny. I think it's a meme. I think it's a fat Bugs Bunny. Yeah. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Flash. I'm working on it. We're getting close. I want to hit the 315. I've been able to squat 425 before. Yes, Flash has the meme. Let's go. The Big Chungus meme. Okay. Okay, Londi has a question here. Do you have any specific tips for people who have to play a lot of games and aren't just casual gamers? I play semi-pro plus collegiate Overwatch, and so it's mandatory. And he has to keep, if he wants to keep the spot on the team, then you have to play a lot, and you put a lot of hours in a week. What are you thinking about there, Londi? Do you have, do you want more physical tips, posture tips, or just what's the concern there? Before I just start spamming uh, advice, I'd rather tailor it more towards what you want. And then Mark, yes, I think I will call myself. I will crown myself Big Chungus when I can do 315 on bench. That's a good call. I like that. Let's see what Londi Flash is saying. Oh, interesting. That's actually really cool. So when Flash was in college and in esports, he had mandatory workouts. That's actually great. That's very that's better than I hope can hope for. Because even some of the professional teams I've worked with, we trying to get them to do mandatory workouts is rough, guys. Even just going for a walk around the neighborhood wasn't always easy. Okay, just general health tips from Londi. He's not playing so much that he can't get out of the house, go for a walk at the gym, but it's more of the daily habits he can implement. Okay, I think then if you're playing a lot, you should make sure that your setup is really comfortable. I think that you should have a water bottle close to you when you're playing to make sure that you're hydrated, and it also forces you to get up because then you have to pee. That's a cheat code, guys. The other thing is I would also make sure that you're recovering really well because you're also in school plus playing collegiate, and it's a lot. And ensuring that you're sleeping well, things like dark room, cold room, white noise machine. I use earplugs every night. It just helps me because I'm just sensitive to sound, and I find they make me sleep way, way better. That's really important. I also think that drinking from your Awala. That's actually probably my favorite water bottle right now. Smart man, Londi. I really like that. But other kind of when you think about performance and health, you kind of have stress, you have sleep, you have food, you have working out and being active, and then the social side. Making sure that you have those other things on lock. It sounds like the physical side you're doing pretty good, but yep, sleep. There it is. Londy's saying that he really struggles with sleep. Yes. Yep. I'd work on that, mate. You probably already heard all those things before, and I think you probably know what would help you sleep better, but it's the it's the why that usually trips people up. It's for me, for example, I know that I should probably put my phone away before I go to bed, but it's how I unwind, and I like reading before I go to bed, and I have all my books and stuff on my phone, which means I'm gonna keep doing it. But what can I do to make it that little bit better? I make sure I limit it to just I stay away from Instagram, I stay away from Reddit. I only will read sports articles or read a book before I go to bed, and that's how I make it a little bit better. And choosing those things that maybe okay, it's not perfect because I'm not going to be perfect all the time, but what can I do to make it that little bit better is important. Night shift mode is also very true, Mark. Yes, I have a red light filter on my phone. It's really strong, and I have a special dimmer where my girlfriend has her phone on full blast all the time, but it's crazy. But I have a big dimmer, and she complains every time I try to show her something because it's so dim. But yes, make sure you do that. Screens, yep, until you pass out, either on your phone, iPad, Switch 2, and whatnot. But it's probably still really unhealthy. I wouldn't say it's extremely unhealthy, but what I find the struggle is if I'm playing or scrolling, it's everything's designed to take so much of your attention and kind of keep you there that it's hard to actually wind down afterwards. And then if I do sleep in that state, I feel like my body's just so on still that I can't actually relax. I think if you're using the screens kind of to numb yourself before you go to bed, which I used to do and I still do sometimes, it's usually tells me that there's something else in my life that I'm not dealing with. And maybe Ryan can hop in here if he's still around, but having a really nice way to unwind beyond those options can be really, really, really helpful. For example, for me, I actually have like some writing here, but I'll actually write things out before I go to bed to try to just get them out of my brain. And I'll put them into two big buckets. One bucket is shit I can't change, so I just gotta let it go. The other bucket is stuff I can change, and I'll write down, okay, what am I gonna do about it? And that way I can almost pre-sort and pre-deal with all my thoughts before I go to bed. And that way, when I am actually trying to go to sleep, there's not a ton of stuff up here, and it's already gone because I've dealt with it already. The key thing is to do it earlier in the day so you don't do it right before bed, and then again, spike yourself before you try to relax. And as Ryan's saying, therapy is OP. please, please use it if you need it. I still see I'm not in an acute stage of anything right now. I'm not struggling. I'm not dying, but I still see my therapist every month and a half just to make sure I'm still on the up and up. It's kind of like brushing your teeth or seeing the dentist. Yes, I can brush my teeth and things feel better, and I can self-soothe and self-regulate, but then having someone who's a professional help me, okay, like there's a little bit more plaque, a little bit more trauma we got to buff out there. Maybe we need a little bit more help. Oh, Ryan likes that. Yes, take the metaphor, dude. Steal it, please. Yeah. Uh, there's a reason why dentists exist, because they can do things that you can't. It's the reason why I have a job too. I really think that you should use professionals who are good at their jobs. That's really it. And as Ryan says, yes, they clean really good. It makes a big difference. Okay. Anybody have any other questions? Otherwise, we'll wrap things up. I appreciate everybody coming out and talking and having such great interactions and having good thoughts. Let's see. Longy, I'm glad you liked the session, mate. That means a lot. Good. Mark's good. Longy's good. Ryan's good. All right. Thank you so much, guys. I'm gonna sign off here. Thank you for taking the time.